and we sucked it up. We found money, didn't have to go back to the taxpayers, and held budgets. As we talked about earlier, and the Board of Ed, God bless them, they did it too. And further cuts by the governor have been accepted into the revenue. As you see, as you know, my expense side of the budget is a zero. We're holding the line. And I'm very, very proud of that. We're doing it through a number of different ways. We're holding it at zero, but the revenue side is going to take a hit. We're still looking at a significant mill rate increase. So we'll be working together on that to move that forward. But as state money disappears and as we build schools and put a lot more money onto our mortgage, we have to accept that maybe 0.7 mill rate was the old days, unfortunately. I am working on a police station solution. We either have to put significant money into that building that we don't own, that was a temporary facility, or to come up with a solution that has been really plagued the town and puzzled the town for a number, 15, 20 years now. We've been talking about police station at Net Hall. What is now Net Hall at the National Guard base, and then we were looking at across from Bridebrook Park, and both of those efforts failed. So I'm working on a solution for that. Many other things happening in town, but I'm open for questions.
Your volunteer group, whatever it's called, is there a link on the town's page to get to that?
eltownhall.com.
And does it include volunteer firefighters?
No. We're collecting names. And let me tell you how it works. It's a kind of a matchmaking service. We're going to just collect names, and then once a month we're going to send an email blast to those names saying, here's the opportunities for service in our town. So some of it might be, become a Rotarian. They do things all the time. Yeah. And some of the things are going to be, we need volunteer firefighters desperately. Absolutely.
The second thing, that crosswalk at the high school, we funded that quite a few months ago. Is there anything holding that up?
Yeah, state permitting held that up, and they denied us twice.
So we got the wire.
Federal regulations changed. It's a state road. Listen, if we were doing this on Lover's Lane, it would have been done the next day, knowing Joe Berga. Okay, it's a state road. It has to meet state requirements and therefore federal requirements because they get federal money. So that's what held it up. Yeah. I'd like to do that downtown. I'd like to put, blinking crosswalks. You've seen that down in Florida or other places where you hit the button on the side of and the crosswalk lights up with LEDs. We could do it, and they could bury them so the plows don't dig them up. Because downtown's dangerous. People stepping out between vans and to cross the street in the middle of the summer. It's very dangerous downtown with motorists and pedestrians. But it's a state road. Can't be done.
Thank you. Nothing, John?
So, yeah, we have an item under First Selectman for the purchasing policy. So, I brought comments that I had at the last meeting that didn't get funneled in. I expected that we'd have some kind of a discussion about this with the board, but it never seems to come to fruition. I don't quite know why, but anyway, I went through and marked this up. There's some key changes that I'd like to see considered. First is that going to sealed bid, the threshold at $50,000, in my opinion, is way too high. Looked at other towns. Some are 10,000, some are 15, but I think that definitely needs to change. I don't know how you want to handle the submission of these comments.
So the answer is yes, it needs to be a longer action item on the agenda. Right now, the subcommittee that's working on this is taking a break because the selectmen are all reviewing their budgets, and they feel that they don't want to hold any more meetings right now.
And
so
we've
we're going
finished our budgets now, but you're about to start yours. So.
Correct. Okay. So Salerno didn't want to hold any more meetings until after we were done reviewing our budgets. So So I would like to put an agenda item on our agenda for as soon as we're done with our budgets to go through this in detail.
Or should they submit it to the subcommittee?
Well, that's what I asked. I said, you can send me the comments now in an email, because it is all draft, it's fine, but I think what Lisa would like to do is have a conversation about it, not just send it into a black box. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and I did have them prepared for the January meeting, but you weren't prepared to receive them. You said you wanted to issue one more draft level.
And you did you get the last draft?
No, your action, as I recall, was to issue another draft because you were gonna clean up some of these typos and formatting. And that's when I asked you if you could wait to move the draft forward, because I still had comments that were not being considered yet.
And the draft hasn't moved forward.
So, how would you like to proceed?
If you want to give me that copy there, or if you want to send me that copy, because it looks like it's been in ink.
Yeah, I'm not scanning this in, that's
No,
not
that's
working.
fine, that's fine. You can just hand it to me. And I can feed that back into the edits that I'm making. Right now, the action on the purchasing policy is on me. I need to we had our last meeting. I took a bunch of actions to update the file, because the file's on my hard drive, but we're not gonna have any more meetings for a while, so I haven't done anything yet. So that's me not getting it done.
After the meeting, I'll talk through what I wrote up for you.
Okay, you are right. We should have had this policy done a long time ago.
Correct.
I concur.
The last item I have is, so the fire study that was done well over a year ago, that's on the town website, has an appendix 13 with a list of 21 recommendations on them. Have we taken action as a town to create an implementation plan for these recommendations?
Maybe that's something we should put on an agenda, because I don't have that fire study in front of me. I don't know the 13 items. I don't have it in front of me, nor is it something on our agenda. Maybe that's something we should talk about.
Well, yeah,
If
I
you'd
mean,
like to.
we've had recommendations for a year that we paid $15,000 for the study. I'm thinking that we would want to take action on them, right? That's why we
Some of the items
paid
are
the
being
guy for the study.
taken. Yes.
So there is one item particularly that I'm interested in, which is recommendation 20, which is establish a working committee with the fire chiefs, the selectmen, and the Board of Finance to review capital planning needs for the emergency services. This will improve communications and reduce the need for arbitrary and unsubstantiated changes to capital gains. Specifically, I'm interested in the status of that implementation, and there are other items in here that certainly have a financial implication. So, and here we are coming up on budget season. And I don't know, I know the town's gonna ask for 0 expense increase or cost increase, but I don't know what that's gonna be specifically for the fire departments, and it would be unfortunate if there were some recommendations in this plan that were not implemented before the budget was prepared. Right?
So the fire departments are asking for very, very little. I think actually, I don't recall any capital improvements, no purchases other than their ongoing buying Scott Air Packs and the breathing apparatus and the things that they buy every year. They
Right.
replace 4 a year. They have 40 in their truck or in their. That's all. No trucks, no
Right,
big
but-
equipment and all that. So while we haven't brought together everyone for a capital meeting, I meet with the fire chiefs and talk about capital. I could bring Bill in as well and talk about
All
capital.
right, so what's happened? What action has been taken with this list of recommendations?
Plenty of action's been taken, ma'am.
So there is an implementation plan with, like...
Plenty of
dates?
action's been taken. I think we could add that to an agenda item
So
if
we
you'd like to
can-
go over it in detail.
Okay. Let's
And we'll
add
have
to
our
the
chiefs
agenda.
come to make presentations.
A long time, that's another thing, in addition to the purchasing policy that's been languishing on the vine for
I
well
think-
over a year.
I think there's a number of items that have been on the vine, just kind of hanging out there. Last year at the budget proposal, there was a list of cost reduction ideas that I proposed that could be discussed. We can probably, some combined board between Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and who else, to just go through and go through all these different ideas and see which ones make sense and which ones are just kind of, yeah, nice idea. For this agenda, we can add the fire study. It's on me that the purchasing policy is not done yet, and that's an excuse, not a reason. Specific to this board, we can talk about the fire study the week after the budgets are done or something like that.
So we're gonna add the fire study recommendations to our agenda?
A summary of actions taken based on the fire study that was performed. And I think what Ann and I have to create is some kind of way to put those agenda items in some kind of queue, because we don't want to carry them here every month and just say, no action taken. We want to talk about them quarterly or something and say, okay, and have more meat to the conversation as opposed to just kind of touch on them every month. It'd be better to have fewer items so we can spend a more detailed conversation on them, I think.
It's typical in other commissions, you don't have a secretary, but you have a vice chair, right?
That's
Say,
me.
You could just have a tickler file, put it in your book that you bring to the meetings all the time, and carry these items, rather than carrying it on the agenda.
That's what I'm saying. Instead of
having something where you're quarterly bringing it up, or a planner, because you often talk about that you don't want to lose things, you don't want things to fall off. Well, create a tickler file and make it the responsibility of the vice.
I think it's
Other
just an
chairs do that.
expectation on our part that every month we expect to get some kind of information about what's on the agenda, and we don't. And that's why it's continually on the agenda, month after month, with no actionable items.
What are you looking for?
Everything that is on the agenda that you just said gets carried forward month after month with no action taken.
Under the first selectman report
No.
specifically?
No.
The purchasing policy,
Yes.
the town
The-
wages and benefits.
Okay,
all
so
of
the
these
last two
items.
meetings, we talked about that. I know the last meeting we talked about it. We said that would be due in June or July. But again, we don't have a tickler file. We don't have
All we
we
gotta
don't have a
do is
list.
put July 18 on that, and we won't
Right.
look at it until then, but we won't lose it.
It
That's
really
all we
doesn't
have to
belong on the
do.
agenda because it says it tells the public you are going to talk about it. Just it will let it come up in July, but you do it your way. And the purchasing policy, we're waiting for a subcommittee to finish it. I have no report. I haven't received a thing. A subcommittee is working on it. I don't know why it's under me.
I
I
don't
have
know.
nothing to report.
Because you said you said the Board of Selectmen owns the policy.
We do on the policy, so when the subcommittee
So the reason,
reports to the Board of
reason why
Selectmen.
it's under you
Yeah,
is
yeah.
because as the
I know
first
it belongs.
select, no, you
I
want
know.
to ask why it's under you, I'm going to tell you why it's under you.
right.
That's a good one.
I know why it's under me, but
Thank
I
you.
have nothing to report, and nor do I have
Thank
anything to report on the study under town wages and benefits.
Okay. Purchasing policy is sad. It should have been more aggressively addressed. Okay.
I
Questions
do-
for our first select?
Yes, I do. I have some questions regarding the revenues. We don't often get into the revenue discussion during the budget deliberation, so I'll ask you now, what legal responsibility do we have to maintain a prison in town if we are going to have a shortfall of funding to the tune of almost $700,000?
What was the
Right?
question?
I'm sorry,
Pilot state-owned property, that includes the prison, correct?
Yeah.
Right? So we used to get 862,000, now you're projecting that we're gonna get 176. What legal obligations do we have to maintain that facility in our town?
We don't maintain the facility.
No.
So what is that funding going toward then?
It is payment in lieu of taxes for the 5 properties that the state owns in our
Right.
town, right? 2 state parks,
Right,
Nahantic and Rocky Neck, 2 National Guard bases, and the prison.
so let me rephrase
So
this.
it's not an obligation to maintain the properties other than we're not collecting taxes on that money, so
Yes.
they're giving us money.
So that's what I was going to rephrase. If that were to be privately developed, we would be earning greater revenues. So what legal obligation do we have to continue having that facility in our town?
They own the property. We have no ability to kick them out of their property. It's state property.
So if there is a fire at that facility we respond.
I believe they have some fire apparatus, but yes, we respond, and our ambulances report there. And when there's traffic backup going into Rocky Neck, it's our police that have to respond. Absolutely, we bear a burden on these facilities.
Okay, guess that answers it.
No kidding.
So there's no lease. They own the property.
They own it. They have the
own it.
deed.
They have the deed.
They have the deed to the
I
property.
did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
know how
yeah.
it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it's and it gets frosted every year when they take more money out of pilot. How dare the state?
did.
Right.
Sorry.
How dare they? Have you ever been to a picnic at the National Guard base here? It's the best view in town. They have the waterfront
Yeah.
that looks right up there. It's the best property in town. We'd be getting millions of dollars for that property along the Niantic River. It's state owned. We're one of only a handful, 4, 6, somewhere in there, 6 handful, of states that actually have pilot programs. Most other states, 45, 44 states, don't even have pilot. If it's state property, it's state property, and they just deal with it. So we do have pilot. It is going away, folks. We know that. It's going away. They cut it down a little bit for next year, according to the governor. But if we're sitting here 5 or 10 years from now, it's not going to be a line. It's going to be a zero there. Be a goose egg on most of the things on your revenue sheet.
So even though you put forward a zero-based budget, I see that the grand list is going to increase by $3.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that means an increase in the mill rate, even if we don't spend an extra dime on anything.
Because the revenues are down. The revenues are way short.
Right.
Expenses we can control. We can't control revenues. Not all of them. Some of them we can control, of course.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. No more questions? Jason?
Can you, I'm not sure I heard you correctly, on the ordinance of the sidewalks, so the town isn't gonna be responsible for the sidewalks anymore, the people who own the sidewalk in front of the house has to shovel it? I kinda zoned out for a second, I
Yeah, those
apologize.
with sidewalks in front of their houses would be required to shovel the sidewalks. Now, we'd go through when we can and get it done, but that would shift the burden and the liability to the
So
property.
all these sidewalks that we put in downtown Niantic now are on the onus of the homeowner that we
Sure.
put in,
Well, they've
or
always
the
been there.
business owner.
There's been some new ones, but
Right,
most of the
right.
sidewalks we improved. We didn't install new ones, but some new ones. Yeah,
Yeah, just.
I know.
That-
I know.
it doesn't-
We're one of only. There's 169 towns in this state. And
Is that
we're
being
one of
voted
four.
on within the Board of Selectmen, this ordinance, or is
Yeah,
this
it'd
from
be
the state, or this is our
Be a Board of
local?
Selectmen ordinance. Be a Board of Selectmen ordinance.
And it's proposed, or
It's
is
just
this actually?
it's being talked about right now, and I'm working up the wording of an ordinance to bring before the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
There are some rural areas that the town would still be responsible for and have the liability for. And there's some municipal areas, rural, and then, down Hope Street, we own property too, that have
Right.
sidewalks.
Yeah.
Yeah. In front of schools, in front of town buildings. It's just a lot, and, carrying however many people we carry on public works, and maybe need more, trying to find ways that, we can spread out the burden.
Yeah, I
Stop.
know that the town usually requires the developers, when they're doing a subdivision generally, to put in sidewalks.
Yeah.
And then you're saying, well, now you need to take care of them. Should they take care of the road too? It's in front of their house. I'll
private
come to
roads.
the.
The private roads, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but, yeah. I know. Some will feel that pinch, right? In some areas, let's be brutally honest, in some of these subdivisions, if you don't do your sidewalk and no one's walking in them anyway, you're walking in
I
the
agree
street.
100%.
So
I
there's a
know.
lot of that.
Yeah,
So
I
we're
know.
really concerned about Main Street.
Right,
I
right,
had
right.
people in Storm 1, I think, where we just couldn't get to it all.
Sure.
And they're walking down Main Street on Saturday. I think it was a couple storms ago. And it, the sidewalk hadn't been shoveled, and people stepping on frozen slush,
Right.
and it was hazardous.
Yeah.
And then they got the complaints, and it's like, we're trying.
Yeah.
We're fully out. And of course, there's the equipment costs. We have to go out and buy a new trackless tractor to do this. We'll still need to buy that tractor. You'll see that coming up in your capital plan. We have to buy a sidewalk plow machine, because one is dead. And that will come.
Thank you.
We're all good? Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance Director, you're up.
First, since you were talking about the revenue budget, in back of the proposed budget, in back of the revenue sheet, there's a little showing all the state revenue. So it shows what we received last fiscal year, what we put in the proposed budget, and what the legislature approved, what the governor approved, and then what's in the proposed budget. What's in the proposed budget is, was based on when the governor released his budget numbers last month. So because there were so many changes with state revenues from when we started to when we finished, we thought it would be best to just lay it all out there for you so that you could see the picture, because it is confusing.
This is under the revenues tab.
Yeah.
Okay, where it says projected revenues?
It's
This
a
table like this?
the horizontal
Yeah,
sheet,
okay.
yeah. So just, so that you know that it's there, and to use it as a tool when you're reviewing the budget. It was really the only way for you to understand how it all played out.
Okay.
And then I just have a question, Camille. When you were asking about the remaining balance in the contingency, do you mean that it's that 78,000 is what you're expecting to be left in it, that we wouldn't make any other requests for the end of the
No,
year?
I was just looking for an indication whether you think we'll have that left over in addition to what was frozen.
Oh, the 96. Well, my interpretation was, did you, meaning that the 78 would meet our needs if we needed any other transfers. So, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure. I would expect that somewhere along the way, there's gonna be something, somewhere we're gonna need money in a budget that doesn't have the resources to deal
And
with
that's
it,
where
and
it's
we'll have
gonna-
to come back. But
Right.
I feel, I'm reasonably confident that that will meet any of the needs that we're going to have. But I just wanted
Mhm.
to make sure
Yeah.
that we were on the same page on
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So I'm clarifying it for it.
Okay, thank you.
Do you also see some areas of the budget that projected surpluses? Not so much.
Well, I'm sure that there will be, like, for example, legal is, we're doing, overall really good. We do have one
That's all
account
right.
that's in trouble, but overall, the remainder of them are doing, rather well. So that's, probably one of the areas. Public Works, we're struggling right now with storm overtime, but we will have the resources within the budget to take care of that. We've had, one of our highway workers has been out on workers' comp, so there's a little bit of reduction in the salary, so we're looking like, okay, we can take some from that account. We're not expecting at this point to get the remaining portion of the town aid road funds, so we've only received half of that, the funding from the state, so that means we can only spend half of the money that we have in the expenditure account.
Question?
Sure.
Just for clarification, so I know that we're self-insured for health benefits and that, but you just mentioned that somebody was out on workers' comp. We do have a policy for workers' comp, correct?
right,
Where
yeah,
they're
right.
paying
Right,
the portion of
exactly,
the
right, yeah.
reduced salary.
That is
That's not
separate.
us, so that's where you're saying we have some savings?
In the salary line item, yes, because his salary is being paid by workers'
Right,
comp when he's
right.
out, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. The health insurance fund, that I worry about, having, enough resources to meet year end. While we did have a meeting last week with our insurance consultants because we did an RFP to see if we could, if we could do any better. And one of the things that was brought up is, like on the board side, all of their employees are in the HSA. So, why are we still struggling with the claims? Well, the issue is we have a large amount of claims that are over $25,000. Well, that $25,000 in claims exceeds the high deductible amount. So even though we've made some great strides with the HSAs, in some respects, it's not helping us with the claims because of the sheer volume of claims that we have over $25,000 in our group. So I do monitor that, and it causes me, I worry about that one. So you do have your reports. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I did put the updated revenue report in your, for you tonight. The issue was really having all of the information for the tax postings for us to be able to get them in the system. So that's the reason why you were given a draft with your packets. And then of course the monthly highlights. Last month on the expenditure side, we paid out the annual required contribution for our pension plan. That was about $744,000, and then we paid the remaining balance of the trooper bill. We had kind of held off on paying that, and the pressure was coming, and so we did need to finally release that payment. And then there are other expenditures highlighted. Again, February was our last big tax collection month. We took in about $2.3 million. The sewer assessment fund, we processed the operating transfer in $356,000, and this is the last time we're receiving that. That will not be in next year's budget. So that's another revenue hit that we're going to take. When this was originally established, it was agreed upon that sewer assessment was going to pay so much money towards the debt, and with this payment, it's been paid in full. And then, of course, another large revenue we received, another out-of-district tuition payment. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Questions?
The health claims you mentioned, are any of those going to be reduced over time? Are they to be paid off? You have so many claims for health you were talking about.
Right.
Are they going to,
Well,
any of those in the near future going away?
We do know of a couple. I am aware of a couple that will be coming off
Yeah.
our claims going forward. So, but there are still many more that I really
It doesn't
don't know about.
make any difference.
Well, hopefully no others will come on to replace those that are coming off
All right.
on a larger scale.
Just with regard to the insurance, it's something that I have to tackle for my own employer, and I just despise dealing with insurance. But this year I did go out to bid again, and I find every time I do that, I find somebody willing to come in at a better rate. And I found some very good policies that were offered by reputable companies.
On the liability side, or?
Professional liability, D&O, commercial liability, workers' compensation. We have a very good outfit that we're using now. Could you provide to us a list of who your carriers are? And I can match that with my experience and see if they match up. And if not, maybe offer some suggestions about where you could go.
Well, we currently have our liability and workers' comp with KERMA. That's the.
I'm sorry, with who?
KERMA. It's an acronym for Connecticut Interlocal the next one. It's, through CCM. It's like an offshoot of CCM, and that's who we have our policies with at the current time.
All of them?
Yes. Well, except there's a couple of smaller ones that we have from outside agencies, and I can get you those names, but most of them are through Kerma.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Anna.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, old business, next agenda item, we have none. Public delegations, or public discussions, I'm sorry. Public discussions, anybody that would like to come and speak about anything that's not on the agenda that is of interest?
I can speak about things that were on the agenda as well.
Can you please give your name and address?
I sure will, and that will be my first question. Pat Larkin, 14 Oak Hill Drive.
Okay.
Now, there were 5 people that spoke here earlier. None of them addressed themselves, so I don't know who they were. Maybe you all knew them, but
Good point.
Yeah, the
Good
people
point.
that are on the agenda typically don't announce who they are, and that's because we have their name on the paper in front of us and you don't see it, so
the
you're
people
right.
the people that are here listening to them don't know who
Yes.
they are.
Yes,
All right.
so we should get,
For the record,
Yeah.
to TV too.
So I want to address the full-time position for the dispatchers. They come and they throw numbers at you guys. The fire chief that was here, I think it was, said they had 1,300 calls so far this year. Comes out to about 600 per month. According to the police dispatch, in December, they had 1,300 calls. That's about 2,000 calls a month. If you figure that out, just looking at a 30-day month, it comes out to 200 calls per month, which is about 3 calls per hour. Are they using their people in the right place? Do they even know where they need their people? They talk about having full-time guys. Have we looked at, during contract negotiating, getting flexible hours with the people so that they could staff when they need the people, so we don't have to add? We just added tonight probably $100,000 going forward forever, based on somebody saying, we need something. And, for 2 hours, 9 to 11, can they have moved one guy to someplace? Do they get no calls from, 7 to 8? And do they have people sitting there then? That's number one. It was good to hear that the town is starting to combine positions, duties, when they're not replacing people. To hear that the Board of Education is adding 3.2 new positions is, outrageous to me as a taxpayer. I really, since the Finance Board is responsible for our town's funds, is the Finance Board represented on our negotiation committee? That's a question for anyone. And since you control the money, I think that someone from the Board of Finance should be on our union negotiations to start bringing those issues that you guys bring up, like flexible work hours. Can we have a full-time guy work Saturday, Sunday versus part-time during the week and stuff like that? Just look at different ways of doing things. I think that's about it. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Under public discussion, anyone else? That's it? Okay, thank you. Board comments, under legal advice, I would like to stay within the confines of what the attorney said. If they have, if you have something specific that you'd like to talk about that is germane, is there any rebuttal or hearing none?
Well, I guess what I would want to say is, what's next out of this discussion?
So we're gonna put an agenda item on after the budget. We're gonna talk about that part of the bylaws. And then we'll come
I'm
up
sorry,
with some.
could you speak louder, Bill? I didn't hear you on this end.
I'm sorry, what I said during that discussion and what I said now was, when we're done with our budget, I would have liked to have it beforehand, but we'll have an agenda item to talk about that, the entire bylaws. We'll probably just review any issues on the bylaws. And then we'll react to it as we feel as a board we want to react to it.
So no changes for the so no changes to the agenda for the foreseeable future?
Well, that's why, yes, we can't, because the way that the bylaws are
Right.
written, we
Right.
have to propose it one week and then motion it the next week, or
Right.
one meeting and then another meeting. So
Right.
that's one of the things that we've
Okay.
got to talk about when we talk about the bylaws. Does it make sense to have, so.
But you're saying that's not going to happen during the budget season because we have too many meetings
Yeah,
coming up?
'cause
It'll
I
be
think that
sometime
this
in
is
May,
the-
June?
I think this is gonna wanna be a fairly involved debate based on the feedback that I've gotten today. I don't think it's a 15-minute agenda item. I think it's a good hour and change agenda item. So yes, the answer is we'll put it on the agenda after the budget season.
Thank you.
Okay. So that, I think, is an appropriate thing to have during this section of the board. And if not, we did it anyway. All right.
Well, I do have
Um,
some board comments. I don't know if we got there yet. You're not wrapping up, are you?
Yeah, that was just the board comments. If there was something else that you want to add.
There is something else. So this would be an opportunity in response to a comment from the public. You know, I do think that there should be a subcommittee from the Board of Finance formed to participate in contract negotiations as they are occurring. I volunteered to do that with the Board of Education the last time they went through their contract negotiation phase, and that was very helpful and insightful into, you know, more than just